It was supposed to be a bright and joyful evening. The hall was filled with excitement as fans, journalists, and media crews gathered for the much-anticipated charity event. Ryan Reynolds, known for his wit and charm, was the star attraction of the night. The atmosphere carried a sense of lightheartedness, with laughter echoing in the corners and cameras flashing every other second. Among the journalists and reporters stood a small figure who instantly caught everyone's attention, a young child reporter. Dressed neatly, holding a tiny microphone almost too big for his hand, the child radiated innocence and confidence. He had already interviewed a few celebrities before Ryan arrived, and each one of them had melted at his soft-spoken questions and genuine curiosity. People in the room admired how effortlessly the child brought smiles to faces, turning what could have been a serious press line into something warm and memorable. When Ryan finally entered, the energy in the room shifted. Fans cheered, photographers rushed closer, and everyone's eyes moved toward the Hollywood star. The child reporter, eager and nervous, prepared himself for what could be the highlight of his young career. A chance to ask Ryan Reynolds a question that might even make the actor laugh. As the child reporter stepped forward, his small voice carried through the microphone with a mixture of nervousness and innocence. With a polite smile, he asked Ryan a simple and heartwarming question. "When you were my age, what was your favorite memory that always made you happy?" It was the kind of question that usually softened even the toughest celebrities, something pure that reminded them of their childhood. But in that moment, Ryan didn't respond the way everyone expected. His smile faded just slightly, his posture stiffened, and his eyes darted away as if he had been caught off guard. Instead of answering with a playful or gentle response, his tone came out sharper than intended. He leaned closer to the microphone and replied with a dismissive laugh, "Kid, I don't really have time for silly questions like that." The words hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. What was supposed to be a light-hearted exchange suddenly turned uncomfortable. The child reporter's smile weakened, his small hands gripping the microphone tighter as he tried to hide the confusion and hurt that showed on his face. For a split second, the entire room went quiet. Some people nervously chuckled, assuming Ryan was joking, while others exchanged shocked glances. This wasn't the charming, witty Ryan Reynolds they were used to seeing on screen. This was a different side of him, one that seemed impatient and even rude. In that brief interaction, the mood of the event shifted completely, and though Ryan quickly moved on to the next question, the damage had already been done. The little reporter, with his oversized press badge hanging from his neck, finally gathered the courage to step forward. Everyone in the room leaned slightly closer, curious to see what this child would ask one of Hollywood's biggest stars. With a bright, innocent smile, he looked up at Ryan and asked in his soft but clear voice, "When you were my age, what was your favorite memory that always made you happy?" It was the kind of question that melted hearts. Many expected Ryan to laugh warmly, maybe share a sweet story about his childhood, or at least give the boy a moment of kindness. The crowd waited with anticipation, knowing how good Ryan usually was at connecting with fans and reporters. But something about that moment went wrong. Ryan's expression shifted, almost like a cloud passing over his face. The playful spark in his eyes dimmed, and his usual quick wit didn't appear. Instead, his tone came out sharper than anyone expected. With a forced chuckle, he muttered, "Kid, I don't really have time for silly questions like that. Let's keep it serious, all right?" The words sliced through the cheerful atmosphere like a blade. For a second, no one knew how to react. The child froze, his smile trembling as if it had been stolen away in an instant. He held onto the microphone tighter, his little fingers squeezing around it nervously, while his eyes shifted down toward the floor. The innocence that had filled the room only a moment ago seemed to vanish into thin air. A few people laughed awkwardly, thinking maybe Ryan was joking, but the tone in his voice hadn't sounded playful. It had sounded dismissive, almost irritated. Others exchanged confused and uneasy looks, as if silently asking each other, "Did he really just say that?" The child reporter tried to mask his feelings, forcing a small nod as if he understood, but his cheeks flushed red with embarrassment. For him, this was supposed to be a proud and memorable moment, a chance to shine in front of the cameras. Yet now it felt like a nightmare unfolding in front of hundreds of eyes. Ryan, on the other hand, quickly shifted his attention to the next, pretending as if nothing had happened. But the silence that followed lingered uncomfortably, and many in the room couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling. What was supposed to be an adorable, heartwarming exchange had instead revealed a side of Ryan Reynolds that nobody expected. The air in the room grew heavy after Ryan's dismissive words. For a moment, it was as if time had stopped. The laughter and chatter that had once filled the hall went silent, leaving behind only the sound of cameras clicking in hesitation. Everyone had seen Ryan Reynolds as the witty, kind, and approachable actor, but the man who had just spoken to a child with such coldness felt like a stranger. The child reporter stood frozen, his lips pressing together as he tried to hold back the sting of embarrassment. His eyes glistened slightly, though he quickly looked down, refusing to let anyone see the hurt that had crept into his young face. He had rehearsed this moment for days, dreaming about asking his favorite actor a sweet, simple question. But instead of the warmth he had expected, he was met with words that cut deep, words that made him feel small in front of an entire crowd. Whispers began to spread across the room. Some journalists leaned toward one another, whispering in disbelief. A few fans tried to laugh it off, insisting that maybe Ryan was just being sarcastic, the way he often is in interviews. But others shook their heads, sensing that this wasn't sarcasm. This was irritation, frustration, maybe even arrogance. The child's parents, watching nervously from the side, looked visibly shaken. They had trusted this moment would be a highlight for their son, something that would inspire him to keep chasing his dreams. Instead, their child was left standing in the spotlight, feeling dismissed by the very person he admired. Online, it didn't take long for the moment to spread. Audience members who had recorded the exchange quickly uploaded it to social media. The clip, only a few seconds long, showed Ryan's serious face and harsh response. Within minutes, it began circulating with captions like, "Did Ryan Reynolds just shut down a child reporter?" and "The side of Ryan Reynolds we've never seen." Back in the hall, the atmosphere was divided. Some tried to move on, asking new questions to fill the silence, but the awkwardness lingered. The damage had already been done. The image of Ryan as the quick-witted, lovable star had been cracked, and the people who had witnessed it firsthand would never forget the uncomfortable hush that followed his words. For the child, it was more than just a moment on stage. It was a painful lesson in how even heroes can disappoint, and how dreams can be shattered in the blink of an eye. By the next morning, the short clip of Ryan Reynolds' exchange with the child reporter had already exploded across the internet. What had started as an awkward silence inside the event hall now turned into a worldwide debate. The video spread like wildfire on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, gathering millions of views within hours. Headlines began to appear. Ryan Reynolds snaps at child reporter, "Not so charming anymore?" and fans questioned the real Ryan. Media outlets replayed the clip over and over, each time zooming in on the child's uncomfortable expression and Ryan's dismissive tone. The innocence of the boy's question made the actor's response seem even harsher. Fans were divided. Some rushed to Ryan's defense, insisting he must have been tired, stressed, or maybe even joking in a way that didn't translate well. Others, however, were outraged. They argued that no matter the excuse, speaking to a child in such a tone was inexcusable, especially for someone who built his career on being likable and down to earth. Parents in particular voiced their disappointment online, sharing comments like, "As a father, I can't imagine dismissing a child like that." Others called it proof that fame had changed Ryan, revealing arrogance beneath the charming mask. Memes and edited videos surfaced almost immediately, turning the short clip into a cultural talking point. Some showed Ryan smiling in movies, then cutting to his sharp remark at the event, with captions like "when the mask slips." Others created side-by-side comparisons of Ryan's on-screen superhero persona with his off-screen moment, questioning if the two could ever match. The child reporter, meanwhile, unintentionally became the symbol of the incident. His teary eyes and forced smile were shared across social media, turning him into the face of innocence mistreated. News outlets tried to reach his family, wanting to know how the boy felt after the encounter. While the parents kept silent, their refusal to comment only fueled further speculation. For Ryan, the backlash was immediate and fierce. His name trended worldwide for all the wrong reasons. In the span of a single night, the actor who had always been adored for his humor, the world had seen something that clashed with his carefully built image, and they weren't willing to let it go so easily. As the backlash grew, conversations shifted from the incident itself to something much larger: Ryan Reynolds' true personality. For years, he had been adored for his humor, charm, and the effortless way he connected with people both on and off the screen. But now, people wondered if all of that had been just an image carefully built for the public. Talk shows picked up the story, playing the viral clip alongside old interviews of Ryan where he seemed endlessly kind and funny. Hosts asked their guests the same burning question: was this just a bad day, or did we finally see the real Ryan Reynolds? The debate quickly divided fans and critics into two camps. Some argued that celebrities are only human and everyone has moments of stress. They pointed out Ryan's busy schedule, long flights, and endless commitments, suggesting that perhaps exhaustion had caused his sharp response. "He's not a machine," one entertainment columnist said. "Even the nicest people have bad days." But others weren't so forgiving. They claimed the incident revealed arrogance hidden beneath Ryan's polished image. A child asked him the simplest, sweetest question. One critic wrote, "That wasn't stress. That was who he really is when the cameras aren't rolling." Rumors began to swirl. Anonymous insiders, whether real or fabricated, started speaking out. Some claimed Ryan had a short temper on set, that he wasn't always the easygoing man he appeared to be in public. Stories resurfaced about arguments with co-stars or tense moments with staff, each one fueling the belief that the viral clip wasn't an isolated event but part of a larger pattern. Social media amplified every voice, every opinion. Fan pages that once celebrated Ryan now questioned him openly. Hashtags like #RyanExposed and #TrueColors trended for days, keeping the debate alive. For many fans, the incident forced them to reconsider what they thought they knew about their favorite star. Was Ryan Reynolds truly the lovable, down-to-earth actor he had always seemed, or was that just a role, another performance for the public eye? The conversation no longer belonged to Ryan alone. It had become a cultural moment, a debate about fame, authenticity, and the fragile line between a public image and private truth. And in that debate, Ryan's name was at the center, whether he liked it or not. For several days, Ryan Reynolds chose silence. While the internet buzzed with arguments, memes, and debates about his true colors, he stayed quiet, offering no explanation or defense. But the longer he remained silent, the more people questioned him. Some saw his refusal to speak as guilt, while others wondered if he simply didn't care. Finally, a week after the incident, Ryan broke his silence. Through a written statement posted on his official social media accounts, he addressed the controversy. His words were carefully chosen, the kind that sounded polished yet personal. "I've seen the conversation around a moment that happened at the charity event last week," the statement began. "I want to say that it was never my intention to upset or disrespect the young reporter who asked me a question. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and unfortunately my response came out harsher than it should have. For that, I sincerely apologize." The statement sparked another wave of reactions. Some fans welcomed the apology, praising him for admitting his mistake and taking responsibility. They argued that everyone deserved a second chance, especially someone with a history of kindness and humor. "We all have bad days," one fan tweeted. "At least he owned up to it." But many others weren't convinced. Critics pointed out that the apology felt too polished, too much like damage control, written by a publicist rather than Ryan himself. They questioned the sincerity of his words, highlighting the fact that it took him a full week to respond, while the child reporter had to endure public attention and silence. If he was truly sorry, one journalist noted, he would have reached out directly to the boy, not just released a statement online. The debate grew even louder. Ryan's attempt to mend his image only deepened the divide. To some, he was a flawed human who admitted his mistake. To others, he was a celebrity trying to protect his brand. The apology that was meant to calm the storm ended up fueling it further, proving how fragile his carefully built reputation had become. In the end, Ryan's response raised as many questions as it answered. Was he genuinely remorseful, or was this just another performance? Another script written not for the big screen, but for the public eye? Despite Ryan's public apology, the incident refused to fade away. News channels, entertainment blogs, and online creators continued dissecting.